once again, welcome to our expo. And to start off, I would like us to, because this is a session on group learning experiences, I think it's quite important for us to form a group together, right? So how else are you going to learn from a group if you don't know each other? So I would like you to just take a minute and go ahead and greet some other people. Share your name, department, what you're teaching, and any groups that you belong to. For example, I personally belong to Toastmasters International. It's a public speaking club, and that's a group that I'm part of. So if you're in any kind of group outside of AAU, please go ahead and share that with someone else. Okay, so I'm not liking the setup here too much. I think this is very traditional classroom style, right? So for this part, if you could help me out, let's just stand up and we have more mobility. And just, feel free and go, oh, hi, Mark. Nice to meet you.
James.
Yeah. So welcome. Some people just came in. Hi. This is basically my plan, but we can be flexible. Okay. First of all, we just did some group forming activity together. And after that, I will be sharing with you some criteria that I have done research on and found to be helpful for group work. Okay, so I'll be sharing that with you. After that, we're going to, depending on time, I'm hoping to give you two experiences, one on working on a project and the other is critique. Okay, so if we have the opportunity, we'll try to do both of them. And finally, we'll finish with a group debrief just before lunchtime for you. Okay, sounds good. A little bit of logistic stuff. I know some of you are critical thinkers and you probably have a lot of questions. Hi, join us somewhere. So rather than just shouting out questions, I would like to give each person a note card. And if you have any burning questions, if you could please just write your questions down on the note card during the session. We will have a group debrief Q&A at the end where we will come back to your questions and address them at the end. Does that sound okay with you? Sounds good. So just checking, on this card, what do you write? Any questions and burning questions or any questions? And when are we going to address these questions? At the end. Thanks. Okay, if you could help me pass some of these around. Excellent. All right, so moving on. Aspire. These are some of the words I found to be key words when I was doing research on group learning. Okay. Here is what I would like you to do, just with a couple of people near you. How do these words relate to you? What comes to your mind when you see these words? And what are some experiences you have? Okay, so just with a couple of people near you, maybe you can go, oh, yeah, just talk it out and say, hey, Charlotte, what does AIM mean to you? Or how does that relate to your experiences working with groups? Right. I'm really curious to hear what you think and what you make of these words up here. And just feel free to chime in, anybody. So AIM, what does that mean to you? How does that help students? Goals, yeah. And students, this is for students, right? So they should have a very clear purpose or aim of what they're doing, whether it's project or if it's an assignment they're doing. If they don't know what they're doing, then they'll be lost, right? So that's like very important in any group project or experiences. What about structure? How do you make out of that?
Plan, class learning outcomes.
Yeah. The learning outcomes, can you say a bit more?
Setting the expectations.
Expectations to me would kind of be similar to the aim. Like, what do you expect? Do you mean like the boundaries or
yes.
what the product should look like? Yeah, that would be structure.
Or interaction, how they are to interact.
Yeah,
with each
kind
other.
of guide them. How do you want them to work, right? Yes,
The process to achieve the goal?
Yeah, the process to achieve the goal. Like, for example, for some projects, you might help your students set a schedule or a time frame, right? So, thank you. Yes.
You could also experiment with different types of structures. So how are
Yeah.
the groups formed? Is it based on affinity? Is it based on expertise? Is it based, and then you can see the differences and compare and contrast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Let's just go down to prior knowledge. This, to me, is probably one of the most important. And Natasha, earlier in our opening, session talked about liminal zone and how prior knowledge could make a difference, right? Like set you to that liminal zone to kind of decrease a little bit. How do you make, what do you make out of prior knowledge?
Skill levels?
Skill level, yeah. Like what level are, because a lot of our students coming with different skill levels, right? Anything else? Okay. Yeah, go
They
ahead.
can learn from each other in terms of if one person's really good at X, Y, or
Absolutely.
Z,
Absolutely.
and the other person's deficient. I mean, that's part of the reason coming together as a group.
Exactly, yeah. When you're working in groups, then you can learn from each other, right? That's part of the whole group learning experience. Another thing to me about prior knowledge is that you don't want to just set your students in an experience without telling them something beforehand, right? Like usually you lecture your students first before they work on a group project. So that's kind of important. Like you give them some prior knowledge before they can work on it. Yes, Dr.
I also think it's important to find out what they know
Mhm.
so that you can kind of gauge what your lecture or whatever information is
Excellent.
going to be, so that if you need to reset the dial.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that phrase. Find out what your students already know, because that way you can make your projects or activities more relevant to your students. Right? Okay. I think I heard a lot of groups saying different things about independence. What are some responses you and your partners came up with?
Time management?
Time management? Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Which is
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I like finding activities or projects where I can work less and just let them work.
Yeah.
So,
Let them be responsible, right? Let them take independence over the project. Yes.
Well, but also within a group, that each person has independence, and it sort of goes to responsibility, because
Mhm.
the two, like in a WebQuest
Yes.
project, where each person has a different role, and they work independently, but the group is all dependent.
Absolutely. So to me, independence is really about, are you giving your students the freedom and space to express themselves creatively, right? Like where does that creativity come in? I think that's something we don't want to over control and structure the students. It's kind of important to balance the structure and independence for our students. Okay. We kind of talked about responsibility already. I think this is sort of individual responsibilities and also group responsibility, right? And finally, equality. Did anyone get to that one? Yeah, over there.
Yeah, the last two are the two most difficult for me because I don't find students take responsibility and I don't find all students equal in it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, you know, trying to encourage them to participate doesn't seem to work with some students.
Exactly. Great question.
And it's
Yeah.
always the same ones who participate and the same ones who just sit and listen.
Mm-hmm. So, just to piggyback on that, I think for me, that definitely is a tricky thing. And hopefully in our two experiences today, you will find some ways or methods that can help you prepare or bring some responsibility and equality among your students. So hopefully you can do that. Charlotte, do you
I
want to
was
say
just going to say, I have found that some people become very bullying when they're in
Ooh.
a group. And they feel everybody isn't fast enough, or they don't understand editing, or they want to be the director, you know, I try to cut that off pretty quickly. I send out emails, because people will come to me and say they wouldn't let me talk.
Right, yeah.
So I try to let them at least have a sense.
Right.
They're not being-
And that's, yeah, great point. And that's where instructors like you can step in and sort of help fix that, right? Yeah.
Exact opposite of that, where there are those students, I guess, possibly with responsibility as well, who won't do the work. They are not equal, and they just say, you know what, you know everything, you do it. And
And I encourage the students who kind of take initiative to not bully, but take over the group and do the work. And the ones who kind of just sit there and do nothing, I've decided, fine, if that's how they want to participate in the group or the class, they're
Yeah.
adults.
I find the ones who step back when somebody runs in very fast or shy, or they're just not used to speaking up. I have a lot of foreign students. My editing classes
Yeah.
are
Pretty much like the job world, I think.
well, but even in the job world, you got to use your teams well.
Right.
And I tried to see if there's someone who really, because there have been people who told me they're directors. I've seen them work. The other ones were much better than they, but they just thought, oh well, I'll take control. I'll do it.
Yeah, I've had that.
I tried to, as a teacher, I try to know myself.
I think this is a great topic, and we'll definitely address that in our experience later. Hopefully, we'll find some answers to this it seems like a burning topic for some of us in here. So hold on to that thought, and we'll come back to that, okay? Okay, first task. With your group members, here we're going to be working on a project, and this project is going to be working on a logo. That's why I asked some graphic designers to help out. So before we start the assignment, I want you to take a look at these logos and just what story do you see? What does it convey to you? What do you know about these logos? Okay, just for about 2 or 3 minutes, talk amongst your group. What do you see? Okay, so we found out that for FedEx there is indeed an arrow in the middle.
Arrow in the negative space.
In the negative
Say the
space.
Pittsburgh Zoo, there's
Okay. Anything about Baskin Robbins? Sugary, childish? Did anyone notice the 31? Okay. They have 31 flavors. Okay. This one? Milwaukee Bruins. Do you see the M and B? Milwaukee Bruins. Okay. And here, Sony Vaio. Does anyone know that one? Sony Vaio? It's the digital and digital and analog.
It's
symbol.
analog waveform and then
Okay.
ones and zeros.
All right. The zoo is just you have animals here. Okay. All right. So hopefully I have activated some of your prior knowledge about graphic design and logo, just a tiny little bit. Okay. And so your assignment is I would like you with your group to design a logo for AAU faculty. All right. And this logo, I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to work in your group. 1 second. Just a rough sketch, right? It needs to represent who faculty is at AAU. That's why we have our experienced and new teachers. They have different spectrums. And it should describe what teaching is about at AAU. All right? So before you start, I have some scrap paper up here and color markers. If you would, hang on a second. This is group work. And before we do that, I would like to assign some responsibilities and roles to you. Sorry, can I just have people look up here for a sec? You can decide among your group members. Just take 1 minute to figure out what roles are you going to assume, what responsibility are you going to take in your group. You can choose more than one if you like, because there are 6 roles, okay? And just try to divide this equally among your group members, okay? 1 minute, go ahead and decide your roles. Highlight the one that you want to use. Wow, guys, let's come back together. Okay. I am amazed at how creative you guys are. I could never do this on my own. And each design is so unique and different that I think there's a lot to look at. Right. Before we move on, though, I want us to, you have just experienced working in groups, right? So I want to take a minute and step out so we remember what we did as a group together. Okay, so if I could just have you focus back on the projector. This is basically my structure for this group experience. If I could just have people look back here for now. We will go to those logos after this. Okay? So first of all, we did some purposeful grouping, right? So put you in different groups. We then look at some logos to activate prior knowledge. Went over the assignment together. We checked some responsibilities of what each person is going to be, either the designer, the devil's advocate, or recorder. And then we had a time limit for you to work on. So these were the steps that I took to set up this experience for you. Now, I'll let you be the judge to see if it works or not, but let's just revisit, were these points hit for you in this experience? And you can just tell me honestly, did you feel as a participant in this experience, was there an aim for you? Was there a purpose for you in here? You can kind of just, yeah, yay, nay, okay. Was there a structure provided for you? Okay. Were your prior knowledge activated? Okay. Did you feel you had some independence while working, creativity? Okay. Did you feel responsible, or you had a clear responsibility within your group? Okay. Did you feel there was some equality? A little bit? So most of you? Okay. So I'm not trying to say this is the perfect experience, but I think if we hit these criteria, the experience is going to be pretty solid, okay? You could disagree with me, that's fine. But in my opinion, if we hit those, that's not bad, okay? So, are you ready for the next experience? Sure. Okay, so now that we have these logos designed, it's time for critique. Here are the 2 critique-focused questions. What story does this logo convey, and how clear is the message? Okay, when you're ready, go ahead, find a logo you didn't design, and try to talk about it.
I would take it further. Like I want to continue that
idea. Again, I really love the designs, and it's just really amazing to see how different they are. Let's go back and look at what we did. Again, the steps. Okay, a quick recap of this experience. Okay. So first, we focus on the criteria a little bit, right? Like the 2 focus questions. Okay, I kind of have a focus for you. We did a task kind of together, and then I asked some questions to clarify, and John over here also added a question, which is very helpful for us. Oh yeah, which one do we start critiquing, right? Then the responsibility, did you pick that up? Where did that come in to this activity we just did? Did you? No? Yeah, taking turns is sort of like you're responsible to contribute. That's why I had you take turns to critique, okay? And there sort of like a time limit. I said when I say stop. Okay, not as good as I expected it to be, but it's somewhat there. So we'll just revisit our criteria again. As a participant, did you feel you had some purpose or aim, a goal? Okay. Was there a structure? Somewhat. Prior knowledge? You were working on logos earlier. Did you feel you were able to express freely? Yeah. Responsibility? Turn-taking? Kind of. Equality? Similar. Okay. So that's an attempt. And by the way, this is not the perfect critique model to show you. If you would like to learn more, my colleague Scott Crisp is doing a whole session on critique this afternoon. And you're welcome to go to his to get more ideas on how to critique with your students. All right? Okay, so the last part is we have a few more minutes left. Just do a quick debrief for the whole process. Again, with your group members, discuss these 2 questions. What aspects of the group experience work well for you? So I'll put Aspire on there so you can see that. And what will you try the next time you assign group or project to your students? Okay, we'll take about 3 or 4 minutes. Just reflect back to the 2 experiences you had and see what you can come up with this. Okay? With your same group. Yeah, with the same group.
Great job with that. I just kind of, okay, you know this.
So I hope you are able to share some ideas moving forward for you and your classes. This comes to an end to our session. earlier I asked you if you had some questions, burning questions throughout the session, you could write them down. We'll just spend the last 2-3 minutes, just any last-minute questions about group learning or any thoughts or plans you would like to share with the group. This is the time we do that.
How do you, since each of our groups are individual, how do you kind of like aggregate the big group all together so that everybody can benefit from what happened in the small group?
You can do a whole group, whole class share after the small group work. So one thing I like to do is to ask each group to pick one person to present the idea to the whole group so they could do that. Or another way is to have them, you can do like a gallery walk where you have half of your groups stay with their logos, for example, and half of you go visit as visitors and then switch the roles. So there are different ways to kind of bring the whole group back in after that. Thank you. That's a great question. Any other?
Yeah. So I've taught a collaborative processes class before at another university, and it was like some of the most drama in terms of any course I've ever taught. And it was really interesting. Like students would be coming to office hours and stuff with questions, and a lot of it was just dealing with simple trust issues and like baggage from their childhood and all that. And it's kind of like this is above my pay grade. You know, I'm not qualified to. Yeah. So what do you do in situations like that where I really felt like it would be great to have a psychiatrist on staff? Here you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And luckily at AU, I believe ARC has a big group of people with resources to help you out, classroom accessibility. Yes?
No?
No?
That's what I said, refer them to ARC.
Yeah, refer them to ARC. There you go.
I had to do that one
Yeah.
semester at work. We just did it.
I don't know, I think a lot of it comes up, I've had it several times, and it does come up, and I haven't used ARC, I'm sure they're helpful, but some of it, you just have to do the human relations 101, and it's painful because people are like really acting out, and then the other students are saying, oh, they didn't do this and they didn't do that, and they say, oh no, well, she was texting me, or that, you know, and off you go to the races. And, you know, I'm thinking like, get me out of here too. You know, there you are, you're there, so they're looking to you. And I've had like students actually say, well, can I talk to you out of class? And then the other people say, well, why are you talking to him in the hall? We're right here. And I said, actually, you're right. You know, we're not going to do this outside of the class. I'll talk to either of you individually, and you know, you're not the ones who get to judge this. You know, just try to quiet it down and sort it out before they.
Mm-hmm. And that does have a big impact on the group, right? Because oftentimes you will find one student is so different that you just don't know what to do with the rest of the group. So I definitely agree that maybe just pull this person aside and then at least set the rest of the group up and try to figure out afterwards what I can do to help this individual who's struggling.